let's play a game which I have called Let's see how many traffic violations we can see during 1 minute while waiting for a traffic light in Guting. I just spent 30 minutes inside of this hospital because of a Taiwan traffic related situation, which inspired me to make this video where I wanted to talk about the traffic situation here in Taiwan and how can we make the Taipei roads a little bit safer. And mom, if you are watching, don't be too worried, just watch the entire video and then hopefully this situation will explain itself in the end. For the sake of this video, I did take a deep dive into Taiwan's Road Traffic Management and Penalty Act just to get a little bit more understanding on the overlying laws and regulations, but also maybe more importantly, the penalties and the fees if you would be breaking these Taiwanese traffic laws. And at first, when I read all these articles in this Penalty Act, I was completely shocked, but then I later also understood why not that many people seem to care out on the roads here in Taiwan. But before we start with this deep dive, I just want to bring everyone up to speed so we all are on the same page, so we all know what I am talking about when I do use the term Taiwanese traffic, or like CNN put it, living hell. So first of all, the Taiwanese traffic consists of 3.5 parts. It's scooters, cars, pedestrians, and then a few bikes here and there. As a European, I wouldn't really count the number of bikes we have here in Taiwan as bike traffic. But since we do have a very nice U-bike system here in Taiwan, I figured I should include that in the overall Taiwanese traffic terms as well. And according to the new Power Party legislator Chen Jiahua, Taiwan has over 14 million motorcycles and scooters and an additional 8 million cars, which means with a total Taiwanese population of 23.5 million, that's almost one vehicle per person on average. Now, just to put this in perspective, if we will compare with Sweden, which first of all is much bigger than Taiwan, we don't have an HSR system, and one single MRT ticket in Stockholm is 130 NT dollars one single way. We only have 10.5 million people, but we also have only 5 million vehicles in total, which means that our average is actually less than half the one of the Taiwanese vehicles. And in 2021, we had almost 3,000 people dying due to some kind of accident on the Taiwanese roads. But somehow, even with all this information, the Formosa Motorcycle Rights Association apparently are calling for fewer restrictions on motorcycle and scooter riders. All of this with the motivation that the government has designed most roads for cars only. Motorcycles and pedestrians mix dangerously on the periphery of roads. It is unjust. Now, as much as I am team scooter and I 100% support the idea of just separating the scooter traffic with the car traffic with the pedestrian traffic, I'm not entirely sure if fewer restrictions is the way to go. But then on the other hand, people aren't really following all these restrictions we have now anyway, so I guess I just don't really see how removing a few restrictions, which people don't really follow anyways, would actually change anything at all. Now, if you don't believe me, let's play a game which I have called Let's see how many traffic violations we can see during 1 minute while waiting for a traffic light in Guting. I have to admit, I'm not 100% read up on the actual traffic regulations for pedestrians, but I am pretty sure that you're not allowed to cross the street unless you are walking on these zebra crossings. But let's continue. But then if we look behind the car here, we do have two people just casually walking in the middle of the road. And again, it's not a zebra crossing, but they will not be lonely for long, because here we have a cyclist coming up, keeping them company as well as they cross this huge intersection. Not long after, of course, followed by another dear pedestrian who totally missed this sidewalk here. And I hope that this pedestrian did not distract you too much, so you actually did notice that we did have a red light for the pedestrian crossing the nearest road here as well. But of course, that did not stop the Taiwanese people to cross the road whenever they feel like it, although there are scooters just waiting for that 99-second to end. Now, maybe this clip was a little bit unfair to the pedestrians and the cyclists, so I also want to show that us scooter riders also are pretty good at just making up our own rules and regulations whenever we feel like it. For example, not stopping at the stop line with a red light and instead stopping wherever we feel like it. For example, on one of these crossroads for those pedestrians. So if you have not experienced Taiwanese traffic before, first of all, congratulations, but then now you're also up to speed, so you have a little bit better understanding what CNN is talking about when they are referring to the Taiwanese traffic as a living hell. And I can guarantee you that we've all wished that we can just magically teleport from one place to another instead of having to go through this living hell every single day. But of course, that is completely impossible unless you are the sponsor of today's video, NordVPN. If you don't know what a VPN is, then that is a virtual private network, which basically means that you're setting up your own network before you connect to the global network, the so-called internet. And this basically means that you can add another layer of protection before you go online, and you can actually decide where in the world you want to create this virtual private network, so the internet will actually believe that you are somewhere completely different. If you have subscribed to my channel for a while, then you know that me and Minthia actually went to Bali last year for an entire month, and of course I continued uploading YouTube videos from this Airbnb in Bali. But this internet from this Airbnb was actually so poorly protected, so YouTube had completely blocked this connection, so I was unable to actually upload my videos onto YouTube from this Airbnb connection. But thanks to NordVPN, I was actually able to first of all create my virtual network, add this layer of security, so then YouTube would trust my connection, making it possible for me to upload videos that you got to watch from this Airbnb in Bali. And just like NordVPN protected YouTube in this case from my unsecure upload, the included threat protection will of course also protect you and your computer from these threats as well. And this function works even if you're not currently using the VPN server function. But in general, most of the time, since we already have a very secure connection here at home, I am mostly using NordVPN to change my virtual location so I can actually access streaming sites from all over the world, so I get access to these streaming services which are not available in Taiwan due to regional restrictions. And if you do want to try out NordVPN yourself, rest assured that it's 100% risk-free, since they are offering a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you are using my personal link, which you will find down in the description, you will actually get up to 63% off your VPN plan and an additional 4 months free VPN service as well. But sadly, although NordVPN is great to protect you from threats online, there is not much you can do to protect you from threats on the Taiwanese roads. But I still wanted to give it a try and see how I, as a Swede, could use a Swedish approach to change this Taiwanese road conditions. So I hope everyone is up to speed, because now it's time to dig deep into the Taiwan Road Traffic Management and Penalty Act, just to get a little bit better understanding over the actual laws and regulations, and maybe even more importantly, the penalties and the fees if you are breaking these rules and regulations, because I personally think that this is a great indicator from the Ministry of Transportation and Communication to see how much they really care and what they are prioritizing out on the Taiwanese roads. Okay, Article 31 of Taiwan Road Traffic Management and Penalty Act. Should a driver or passenger of a motorcycle fail to wear a helmet as required by regulation, the driver shall be fined 500 NT. Now, to put this into perspective, in Sweden, it's 4,500 NT penalty, and if you allow a child up to the age of 15 years old to ride without a helmet, you actually have to pay 7,500 NT as the driver of this motorcycle with an underage kid without a helmet on the back. Moving on to Article 31-1, and don't worry, we're not going to go through every single article here. I just want to give you a little bit perspective once again to see what else you can get a fine for up on the Taiwanese roads. Article 31-1. While driving a car and riding a motorcycle on road, if the driver holds, smokes, lights the cigarette to endanger the other person's safety, he or she shall be fined 600 NT. Which means you can actually get fined more if you are smoking a cigarette inside of a car than if you are riding a motorcycle without a helmet. Article 44. Any car driver who fails to yield pedestrians on a pedestrian crosswalk shall be fined from 1,200 NT to 3,600 NT. Again, we put this in a Swedish perspective. In Sweden, it's 9,000 NT fine, and you can also lose your driving license depending on the situation. And I honestly think this is a great idea. Taiwanese people, who are so friendly 99% of the time, are just terrible people in traffic. From a European pedestrian has the right to do basically whatever they want in traffic, and the cars shall yield. That is just not how it works here in Taiwan. And I do think that a 9,000 NT fine and the risk of actually losing your driving license would change that in a week. Moving on, Article 53. Should a car driver pass through an intersection with signal control without following the signal instruction and run a red light, he or she shall be fined from 1,800 NT to 5,400 NT. In Sweden, once again, 9,000 NT fine plus almost automatically having your driving license recalled for 2 months, also depending on the situation. But something that is very interesting to see here is that in Sweden, running a red light and not yielding for a pedestrian, this means that even if they haven't even started walking on the actual crossroad, if they're on the sidewalk waiting to cross the road, you still have to stop and let them walk over. If you don't, you will get penalized just as much as if you are driving through a red light, which in our case is 9,000 NT dollars. But one final interesting thing that I found here deep in these Taiwan regulations. Remember, we had 500 NT penalty for driving a motorcycle without a helmet, and then we had up to 5,400 NT for just running a red light. But in the event of carrying sand, stone, or soil not by a designed vehicle, or the vehicle's trunk does not comply with the regulations or has been altered, the vehicle's owner shall be fined from 40,000 NT to 80,000 NT. Which means that if my math is somewhat correct, you can actually run a red light 20 times and pay as much fee as if you would carry sand, stone, and soil not by a designated vehicle, and then end up paying the same. And I'm not entirely sure what is happening here, Taiwan. I feel like either there is a huge miss in the just overall translation from the Chinese to the English version, or you guys just really care about your licensing and car registrations, which I don't really know what you or I should do with this information, but I do feel that someone at the Ministry of Transportation and Communication might want to reconsider and re-evaluate and just remake this act, because it doesn't make any sense at all, I think. Anyway, there you have a Swedish approach to the Taiwanese road conditions, but this channel is not called 瑞典人介绍台湾, this is 外国人介绍台湾, so of course we need some other foreigners' perspective on this entire situation as well. So I think it's time to ask another foreigner here, the guest in today's video, to see if he has any advice on how to improve the overall situation and also the safety on the Taiwanese roads. And in order to answer this question, we have of course come down here to Kaohsiung and to ask my favorite foreigner down here, Wes Davies. How do we improve the traffic conditions here in Taiwan?
So I drive a scooter. I do not want to drive a car on the streets here in Taiwan. I think that would be so stressful. That being said, I really think if we had more dedicated scooter lanes that are kind of untouchable for cars.
They're called sidewalks.
Oh, yeah. But then the next question is, how do we keep pedestrians safe? I would even go ahead and say in bigger cities, what if we had special streets that are scooters only? Cars can't even go on those streets, and especially those huge buses with the blind spots that can't even see scooters coming up beside them.
Okay, dedicated scooter lanes is your answer.
What about underground scooter tunnels with no stoplights? So you could just zip up and down the city underneath the streets, almost like an MRT, but for scooters. Just zipping up around, not worrying about buses or cars or trucks. City engineers, are you listening?
You have actually done something that I have never done during my 11.5 years here in Taiwan.
Huandao?
Huandao on a scooter.
On a scooter.
So I wanted to see, have you noticed a difference in traffic depending on where in Taiwan you are?
Definitely. Believe it or not, the area around Taipei tends to be the worst.
Really?
Like New Taipei City, Taoyuan, those types of areas.
Okay.
I find people up there, I think they're a little bit more impatient, so they're not as careful. They'll just zip right past you, they'll lay on their horn, they'll honk, they'll cut you off. Whereas people in the south, I think they drive and they move a little bit slower.
Says the person from Kaohsiung, infamously known for turning right on red lights.
Well, I'm Canadian, so in Canada, you're actually allowed to turn right on a red light.
Really?
Oh yeah. I mean, you have to stop, just like a stop sign. But then once you determine there's no cars coming, you're totally allowed to turn right on a red light.
For real?
And I love that. That's one thing I really miss about driving in Canada. If you're in Kaohsiung, maybe you can turn right, but certainly not up north.
I think, yeah, I don't really know if we solved any problems, but...
Come on, the underground scooter lanes.
Okay, sure.
Sounds like something out of the future.
Yeah, I should have rephrased it a little bit more, like realistic ways of improving traffic.
Realistically. Yeah, you're pooch. There's no way to solve it.
Anyway, back to the studio. Thank you so much for that, Wes and myself. Yeah, maybe we will not solve this issue tonight, this week, and maybe not even this month, but hopefully we can at least start, be a little bit more aware. Hopefully we'll be able to decrease the number of accidents on the Taiwanese roads and also just increase the overall common sense when we are behind the wheel, the steering handle, or just walking around, hopefully not in the middle of the road. And hopefully, last but not least, we can also increase the number of subscribers on this channel. If you thought that this comparison between Sweden, a little bit of Canada, and Taiwan was interesting, please do support me by subscribing to my channel if you haven't already. And if you do want to support me a little bit extra, please also consider joining the YouTube channel membership, since 100% of this revenue goes straight back into the channel in order to make more and better videos about Taiwan every single week. And to answer the question from the beginning of this video and to calm my mom down a little bit so she does not call me right after watching this video, believe it or not, despite everything I have been talking about these last couple of minutes, I have actually decided to take a car driving license here in Taiwan. You may not know this, but most foreigners who are subscribing to my channel, their first video, the video that made them actually discover my channel, is how to take a scooter license here in Taiwan. And these foreigners are asking me, where can I find the car driving license video? And I just have to tell them that I don't have a car driving license. So although this might be the most dangerous thing I've ever tried here in Taiwan, I do want to help new foreigners settle in even faster than I have here in Taiwan, and hopefully I will pass the driver's license and also make a video. And the first stop in order to get your car driving license, you actually need to do a health check at the hospital, which was what I was doing earlier today, because apparently it is actually still a requirement to be able to see and hear properly in order to get your license, although it may not always look like that if you're out on the Taiwanese streets. Thank you all so much for watching. My name is Lukas. Starts with L as in like, ends with S as in subscribe. Please do both, and see you all in the next one.